she was like, how are you feeling about this pregnancy? And I pretty much told her, I was like, this pregnancy is not going to last. We're not doing this pregnancy. This baby's not happening. I told her I already made my appointment at Planned Parenthood. It's next week at 9 a.m. And that's what's happening. And so...
All right, so we'll start from the top. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Keegan Abbott. I am a wife and a mom of 2 and 1 on the way. I'm from California. I went to school at Syracuse and then George Mason, and then I met my husband through my George Mason roommate, and we fell in love, moved here, and we're sticking here. We're planting roots. We really like it.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Sure. I'm an only child, and so my parents had just me to obsess over. And went to public school. I danced on a competition team, so that's where I spent most of my days, most of my time. It was pretty serious. I loved it, but it was rigorous, and there were pretty high expectations for me all across the board. Had to get straight A's. If I didn't get straight A's, my mom would outline the grades that were unacceptable and told me to fix it. And then I was also, expected to be the best performer, the highest score, all of the things. So just really high expectations, which, to a degree was good for me because it kept me out of trouble. I definitely didn't have any free time to go out and cause a ruckus like my friends, but it was a lot of pressure. And I wouldn't say I grew up in a church. I would go every now and then with one of my best friends, but my parents didn't really go, and so I always kind of resented that. Always thought it was a little bit hypocritical. And so, we grew up and we prayed over meals, but that was about it. And I knew about Jesus. I knew just like the basics, but I definitely did not know the extent to his sacrifice. I didn't know the extent to his love for me. And I lived a life that reflected that for sure. So when I went to college, I luckily got a scholarship to go as far away as I could, just so I could finally have some freedom. And then that turned into the party girl lifestyle, and just things that I'm pretty horrified to think about to this day. But it all happened for a reason, and in hindsight, it just, showed me how much I truly needed Jesus. So, I partied, I graduated, and then I took a year off to move home. My grandmother had recently lost her husband, my grandfather, and so I decided to move in with her. She needed some company, and I loved her. I got along, I'd say, better with her than I did my own mom. My mom and I are very similar, so we butt heads a lot, in the best way now. But in the past, it was kind of rough. And so I moved in with my grandmother. I call her my bug, and she and I had 6 months together where I was just applying for grad school and just spending time with her, spending quality time with her. And she loves the Lord, and this is going to be weird, but she watched Dr. Phil a lot, and I know he's a believer, and he would incorporate that a lot into his advice for these people on his show, and I just kind of sat back and I listened to that a lot, and I listened to her a lot, and we had really good, deep conversations about the Lord and just about what I want out of life. And then I went to grad school. I was living in D.C., lived there for 4 years, and after leaving my bug's house, I still fell back into that party girl lifestyle because I was like, oh, I have, freedom again. And I met my roommate, and she instantly became a best friend, family, and I think she always had in mind this person for me who happened to be her cousin, but she wanted me to grow out of my party girl lifestyle and get that over with, be done with it before I could really earn, I think, her cousin. And so 2020 hit, COVID hit, and I just had this horrible dating experience. I wrote off men, or boys really, and I was done. And I flew home to Quarantined with my family. I was there for about 2 months. Deleted all the dating apps. I was finished. I was just going to focus on my resume. I was going to focus on time with my family, and it was going to be great. Not even like 3 days into that, I get this random text from a random number, and it happens to be her cousin. She is quarantining. My roommate is quarantining with his family. I come up in conversation. She gives him my phone number. He texts me, and he's so dumb, and I love him. But it was like, hey, Keegan, how's your coronation going so far? And I was like, who is this? But he was just instantly different, and we spent all night talking. And then over the next 2 months, we talked, and we FaceTimed, and we talked on the phone, and we built this relationship off of that before even meeting. And then when it was time to fly back to DC, he picked me up from the airport. It was like very rom-com. It was very sweet. Had our first little kiss, and then the next day I met his family over dinner, and it was just all very like happened so fast, but in the most perfect way. And he was so different. It wasn't anything like the guys that I dated in the past. And it was really like through that relationship that the Lord started really pursuing me in my heart. Yeah.
Is that because, was he a believer?
He was. He was a believer. I wouldn't say he was the best follower. We were definitely still living pretty secular lives, I would say. But he had a stronger faith base than I did, for sure.
Kind of what's his background growing up? Were they raised in the church or?
As far as I understand, he's an Army brat, and so they were all over. So they moved place to place every 2 years, didn't really get the chance to plant roots or, grow deep relationships. So they kind of only ever had each other. I think they dabbled in the church every now and then. I know they prayed. I think it was kind of my similar situation, just kind of over meals and for special occasions and stuff. But he was just a genuinely sweet, kind-hearted person. And I can't say that about myself. He always had this loving and kind and gentle demeanor. And I would consider myself to really have the opposite. So that rubbed off on me a lot.
That's cool. You said something, I'm going to adjust this slightly, but
Sure.
You said something that I found interesting. In your childhood, you said you almost found it hypocritical.
Yeah.
Why, like as a child, like what makes a child think that? Like was it the fact that you were praying, but it wasn't like legit?
They weren't living out a life that I think was expected of me. So this is kind of a strange example, but this is an example. My parents did not get me the HPV shot growing up because I was expected to abstain, to not have unprotected sex, to live a life of purity. Even though I didn't really learn about what the Bible had to say about that. I knew it was an expectation. I knew that, if I lived a life of anything less than perfect and 100% and straight A's and first place across the board, not that I was a disappointment to them, but that I was falling short of their expectations.
So what is like the early relationship looking like?
Yeah. So we started talking in like February or March of 2020. We meet for the first time in May. And then he asked me to be his girlfriend about a week into meeting each other. And it was just all very fast paced. But it didn't feel disingenuine. It felt right. We only had about a month together before he had to head back to school. He went to Kings Point in Long Island. And so we tried to make the most of that month. We went on our first official date, had Thai food by this little pond. It was magical. And then he left, and we were back to long distance again. And it really forced us to work on communication and just kind of get to know each other's communication styles and, what works, what doesn't. But it was very different than any other type of relationship I've ever been in. I've always been with that person, and it's like we didn't really have to work on communication. We didn't have to work on the important things. It was just like, okay, we can be right here and now. We can be physical if we want. We can, do whatever we want. And that's why it didn't last, and that's why I never really was interested in pursuing another relationship.
What was it about that relationship that was kind of like the Lord was pursuing you at this moment? Like, why?
Yeah.
In retrospect, why would you say that?
Because I knew the moment that I met Christian that the Lord had this person in mind for me, that he was someone special sent directly from the Lord, because he was entirely different than anyone I had ever dated. I was in in every sort of the word abusive relationship prior to him. And so he was entirely different, and I was grateful. And so it kind of made me lean into the Lord more and out of gratitude. And just the way and the manner in which Christian holds himself, he's just, like I said, he's so gentle and he's so kind and just like inherently good-hearted. And there had to be God inside him, like he had to have something different than the other guys that I've dated, And so I wanted to know more about that. And I didn't really pursue faith more because of him. It was just, I was drawing nearer to God, I think. Like I said, just out of gratitude and because he was so different. And I was just in awe of both him and really of the Lord for sending him to me. That someone could be so different from me, but so perfect and just really fill all of the needs that I have. I couldn't really believe it. And so I knew there had to be something special at play here.
Coming out of like a bad relationship or an abusive relationship, like were you at a faith walk to where you were praying to the Lord to like give you somebody godlike or?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So this was a gift from the Lord.
A gift. Yeah. Totally a gift.
Yeah. Just
out of his generosity. I don't even think I had a relationship with him at this point. He wanted one with me. But I knew he existed. I always knew he existed, and I believed that he existed, but I certainly was not pursuing a relationship with him. I certainly wasn't walking in the way that he called me to. My ex-boyfriend a long time ago, before Christian, was Muslim, and I got to the point in that relationship where I was like, I will do whatever you want if it's going to keep you calm and at bay, and if we can just get along. And I was even considering converting to the Muslim religion. And like, praise God that, the Lord interfered with that. I'm so grateful every day. Because I can't even imagine. But I was researching it. I was looking into it, and he, like I said, he interfered and he pursued me.
So while you and Christian are dating, what would you say mattered most to you at that point in your life? You mentioned goals, your mindset, promotions.
Sure.
Like what was your kind of like ambitions at that point in time?
I had just graduated grad school when I met Christian, and pursuing a big girl career was really at the top of my list. Christian was there. He supported me. We were having fun. That's fine. Whatever will happen with that. But my career was at the top of my list. I was going to dance for the Wizards, so professionally dancing was, close to it. And just like enjoying life, really, just living a very selfish life. Christian was down here in Norfolk. I was up in DC, so I had 5 days out of the week where I could do whatever I wanted. And then I would see him on the weekends, and so I still had my own life. And then we had like a little combination of our lives together on the weekends, and then I went back to my life. And I had, this job that I loved, that I was super proud of. I was going to be dancing, and I had this new apartment I got, and it all just felt perfect according to my standards,
And that kind of prefaces, we're in July of 2021.
Yeah.
You found out
we were pregnant.
You can explain.
Yeah. So, Christian and I had only been dating a little over a year when we found out we were pregnant. And when we first saw that pregnancy test, for whatever reason, his first response was to drop down and do push-ups. I don't know. But my initial response was to panic. And I told him, I was like, I can't have a baby right now. That's the last thing that we're doing right now. I need you to know that. And I could tell by the look in his eyes when I told him that I had just broken his heart, because he clearly did not believe in that. And so we sat down, and he told me that no matter what, he loves me and he's going to support me. But I knew that he really didn't want me to go through with something like that. So we look up a place to confirm the pregnancy. And I didn't know this, but it was a crisis pregnancy center that's Christian-based. And it was up in Alexandria, right outside of where I used to live. And he came up, and we had that appointment together. And the patient advocate, she pulled me, and she brought me back to her office. And we talked for about 30 minutes, and she told me, she asked me, she was like, how are you feeling about this pregnancy? And I pretty much told her, I was like, this pregnancy is not going to last. We're not doing this pregnancy. This baby's not happening. I told her I already made my appointment at Planned Parenthood. It's next week at 9 a.m. And that's what's happening. And she just kept telling me, she was like, the Lord is sovereign over all life, all creation, all human life, all babies. And pretty much everything she was saying to me went in one ear and out the other. I already had my mind made up for all of my selfish reasons. And so then she shifted to trying to give me resources for adoption. And I told her, I cannot have my body change from pregnancy. I don't even want anybody to know I'm pregnant. This is not something that, I want to turn my life upside down. I don't want people to know. I'm afraid of what they're going to think of me. I want this to be done and out of my life as soon as possible. And I told her the selfish reasons, like, I got my new job. I don't want to lose that. I got my new apartment. I don't want to leave. I'm not married to my husband to my boyfriend, and I don't want to disappoint my parents for having a baby out of wedlock. And my body can't change if I'm going to dance professionally, so this isn't happening. And I felt really justified in those, And so that part was done, and she takes me back to the front, and the ultrasound technician, she takes me and Christian back. She starts the ultrasound, and she puts it over my belly, and the first thing we see is just this fluttering heartbeat and what looks like just like a little tadpole. And we see the heartbeat, and then we hear the heartbeat. And just the sound of that heartbeat. The sound of the heartbeat. The Lord changed my heart from the sound of that heartbeat. I remember, I will never forget that feeling. I will never forget just the screen and Christian there holding my hand and just physically feeling my heart change as we heard that heartbeat. And we both just sat there and we cried. We cried so hard. I'd never seen him cry so hard in my life. And we just cried and we cried and we cried. And it was the most beautiful experience and the most terrifying experience, because I didn't know what was happening. I thought I had this plan. And suddenly this was maybe changing that plan. And I was always one to live according to a plan. And so I didn't know what to think. I was like, I'm so in awe of what I'm seeing right now and what I'm hearing. And like, I just felt, like I said, my heart of stone, I felt it turn from a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. And we left that office, and I was still just in shock. I was in shock. I was in awe. But I really think the enemy was still coming after me, and he was trying to whisper these lies that this is not meant for you. This is not easiest for you. You have this life set up that you love. That's what you should pursue. And so part of me was still considering abortion. I didn't cancel my appointment at Planned Parenthood. And so Christian and I continued to talk about it. And again, he repeated that he loves me and that he's going to support me. But I knew he didn't really mean it. I knew he loved me. I know that part. But I knew the support part. I knew I would break his heart, had I gone through with it. And so he went back home to Norfolk. I was home in D.C. And over that next week, I researched post-abortion testimonials, and I just read how women just feel like entirely separated from God, and they feel alone, they feel lost. And I sat with that, and I was like, is that something that I want to feel? And really, for what I think was the first time in my life, I prayed so hard that week. And at the end of it, I made this decision. I was like, I'm not going to do the easy way out. I'm not going through with this if it's going to sever my relationship with the Lord. Like, the easy way out is not worth my relationship with him. And so I chose to be obedient, and I chose to go through with the plans he has for me and Christian.
So during the week after the ultrasound, what were your prayers like?
I was praying just, for clarity. I'm like, is this from you, or is this a mistake that Christian and I made? I didn't know his character. So I was like, is this punishment for sex out of wedlock? Is this a lesson? Is this a test? I was just asking him for clarity, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like I, one, deserve this. Two, I don't feel like I can do this. I didn't really even like kids back then. I had a dog I loved him. That was my child, and I was good with him being my child for the rest of my life. And so I was just like, I think you got it wrong, just kind of telling him how unprepared and unqualified I felt for this task. And I just remember taking my dog on his walk every day, and that's really when I did a majority of my praying. And just kind of looking around at families taking their kids on walks and playing with them at the playground. Just looking at that, do I want that? And then there was just kind of one day where I looked at it, and I just felt this very calm sense about maybe I do want that. That can be pretty beautiful, but I was still questioning. I'm like, am I qualified for that? Am I good enough for that? I'm a very selfish person. Are you sure? Am I good enough for that? And so by the end of the week, I was just like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go through with this. And I was terrified, petrified. I'm sure Christian was too, but he was instantly way more excited about it than I was. But I just didn't feel worthy of the calling, because I had no relationship with him up until then, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really have a faith base to fall back on, so I was just it was really like a leap of faith in him. It's like, okay, if you're sure, I'm sure, we're going to do this. I called Christian. I was like, hey, my appointment at Planned Parenthood, it's tomorrow. I'm not going. And we sat on the phone and we cried. And it was for him, it was really happy tears. For me, it was partly happy tears, but also just scared out of my mind tears. And then for the next month until I hit my second trimester, it was kind of our little secret. And it was just this really special time, because he instantly hit Amazon. He got me a Preggy pillow. He got me the Preggy Pop Drops. He got me a first-time mom's pregnancy journal. And he was just always so gung-ho about it. And I kind of wish that I could be so gung-ho about it too. But he gave me a lot of strength while I was still working on my relationship with the Lord. And then eventually I got it from the Lord, but I was so scared, and I didn't know what to think, and was still working out, my stuff with him. And yeah, it was a scary time, but it was a really, like, precious time to us, too, because, like, it was, like, our little secret, and we got to be excited about it together, and I eventually got more and more and more and more excited. Yeah.
So it's like at that point in time, were y'all going to church or anything like that?
No.
Like, so you're a believer at this point in time.
But not a follower.
Not a follower yet, but this is all coming through prayer. Like, were you in the Word yet?
No.
Or?
No, not at all.
So
I had a Bible.
It's an early faith walk, though, because you're starting to lay down big things in your life.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's like the beginning.
Yeah. You know, I have heard scripture, you know, in the past. I've heard talk about it. I knew about it, but I never once really opened my Bible, I don't think. I got a beautiful Bible from my grandmother when I graduated college, and I think the only time I ever opened it was to read the little passage she wrote me. You know, I didn't have any faith base whatsoever. I knew about him. I believed in him, but that was the extent of it.
Yeah. So then the second trimester and
then it was time to tell everybody. And so we decided the safest bet was to tell his parents first, because they had him. They got pregnant with him before they were married as well. So we're like, okay, that's a safe bet. We can tell them, and they can't really judge because they've been through it. And then also they're very accepting people to begin with anyway. And so, of all places, we decide to tell them at Texas Roadhouse. And now it's kind of like this inside joke in our family that if we ever have anything big or big news to share, we're going to Texas Roadhouse. So anyway, we are sitting at our table at Texas Roadhouse. The waiter is literally coming with our food, and that's when Christian decides to say, Keegan has something to tell you. Are you kidding me? So I say, try that again. And so we essentially tell them together. And there's shock, you know, they are in shock. But they just say, congratulations. Like, what an exciting time. And we were just met with so much support and encouragement. And it was such a relief because I knew later that day I had to tell my parents. So the waiter is there. He's congratulating us, all of the things. Everybody's involved. And so that was like a happy little moment prior to the storm that I knew was coming. So we go back to their house. My parents are still in California, so I have to FaceTime them. We get there. We start the FaceTime. We break the news. And I'll never forget the look on my dad's face. Just the shock, like the utter shock. Because I've never really done anything in my life to shock them like that. Like I've said, I've always lived according to plan. I was pretty predictable. They knew what to expect out of me. So something like that just really took him by surprise. And my mom was shocked too, but I was looking more at my dad because I never want to disappoint them, but I specifically never want to disappoint my dad. I'm very much a daddy's girl. And apart from Christian, like, he is the most important man in my life. And so I'm looking at him, and he doesn't say a word to me. We're on the phone for, I don't know. I think it was like a 15-minute FaceTime call, and he never said a word to me. And he gets up and he walks away. And I'm there talking to my mom, you know, and she's just shocked. And she doesn't know what to make of this. I remember her saying, you know, a baby deserves a pregnancy brain. What is it? A commitment. A baby deserves a commitment. And so her saying, you guys need to get married, which was already the plan. We know. We wanted to get married. It just kind of happened out of order. And so we kind of had that conversation just about logistics. And then my dad, you know, comes back into the phone camera and, you know, he says he loves me, which I think was all I needed to hear. And despite the shock, they still received it so much more graciously than I anticipated. which was a huge relief. And I think just another sign from the Lord that it was his doing and that this was meant to be, even though it wasn't according to my plan. Like, this was still good, and this was still going to happen, and he was gonna make sure everything went smoothly for us. So I wake up the next morning to a text from my mom that said she loves me and she supports me, and that she and my dad are actually very excited to be grandparents. And, like, I just broke down. I was so relieved. And, like, again, like, that was just solidifying, this is meant to be. And, like, one of my biggest fears about having this baby was disappointing them and making them think that I was a failure in any way, or that I was disappointing them or embarrassing them. I never wanted any of that. So that just gave me all the reassurance that I needed. And we FaceTime the grandparents and the aunts and the friends, and, like, everybody just received it with just such joy. Like, totally unexpected. Totally not the way that I planned it to go at all. I was preparing for the worst. I was preparing really to not have a relationship with my parents anymore. And, like, the Lord made a way, and the best part is that they all picked up and moved cross country to be here, to be a part of my husband's, and my baby's lives, because they're that excited about being grandparents, because they're that supportive. And that is the opposite of what I was expecting to happen.
Tell me about, like, the rest of the pregnancy. After the news has been broke, how did everything go?
It was great. I mean, no. It was great as, like, I didn't really have morning sickness. It felt like a very easy pregnancy until we moved in together here in, like, our first house together in Virginia Beach. And we went to our first appointment with Virginia Beach OBGYN at Centera. We have our first ultrasound with them, and during the ultrasound, they spot something on our baby's, like, skull, and they say, there's a ridge on the baby's cranium. I don't know what that means. So they send us away into, like, our little waiting room, and we're waiting for the doctor to come in. And she comes in and she says, yeah, we spotted, like, a significant ridge on your baby's skull. And I'm like, what does that mean? What is that? And she says, well, it could be, it could be nothing, but it could also be really something, and something really severe. So we're going to get you set up with EVMS. We're going to get you an ultrasound with them. I think I had to wait like 2 weeks for that. But maybe start mentally preparing for, this, I don't even remember the word that they use, but like a dysphoria. And so at that point, my faith base was just teeny tiny. And so we go home. I am distraught. I don't stop crying for days. And, we call my mom, we call really everyone, and we start asking for prayers. And that's another time in my life where I feel like I prayed the hardest, and one of the few times that I've prayed. And I, like, didn't even know what to pray for. I was so distraught, and I was like, there's no way that this is happening. There is no way. I was angry. I was like, there's no way that you called me to this, to have a baby, and then my baby is not okay. And so I was angry at first, and then I thought I was being punished for even considering abortion. I thought that he was a punishing God. I thought that he was still disappointed in me, and that this was a lesson, or I don't know, but I couldn't believe it. And so we have our ultrasound 2 weeks later with EVMS. Comes back perfect, like the most perfect baby. We have another one to confirm that that's really the case. Again, perfection. And so I just didn't really know what to make of him, because I was like, okay, at first I've been called to have this baby. Not really out of my own choosing, but I decided to trust you. Okay, now this baby's not okay. But now the baby is okay. Was that because of prayer, or was it okay all along and it was just a test to have me truly trust in you? I don't know, but that was something. That was a test of faith for sure. And my mom actually says that she hit the floor and she prayed on her knees that day. And she said she felt just this overwhelming calm from her head to the tips of her toes. And she told me about that, and I was just like, I didn't really know what to make of that, because we never really talked about stuff like that. But the rest of the pregnancy, it was great. My birth was fine, as far as I remember. She came out and she was like this perfect little girl, and when we had her, like, that's when Christian and I, like, just holding her, that's when Christian and I were just like, okay, we can't do this parenting thing on our own. Like, there's no way we can raise this baby just on our own and with our own strength. Like, there's no way. So really having her was a catalyst to truly starting our faith walk, I would say. Because from then on, we found a church, we joined a small group, and that small group really helped us propel us further in our faith walk as well. And that's when we were still living in Virginia Beach, so we went to a different church at that time, and then we moved to Chesapeake, end of 2023, started coming here, and we've just grown exponentially since then.
So tell me, how old is she now?
She's 3.5. She's going to be 4 on St. Patrick's Day. And then we have a 22-month-old son as well, and he'll be 2 in January. And then we have a third on the way, due end of May.
And you guys are married, and
we're married, yes. So we told the family, let's call it August of 2021. Told the family early August of 2021 we were pregnant, we're expecting, this is happening. They received it surprisingly well. Christian and I get engaged September 2021. We get married November 2021, and then we have our daughter March 2022. And, we're living together in Virginia Beach at the time. After about 3 months of just, like, the postpartum trenches and just wanting to keep our baby protected from just the outside, we go to this church, and that's where we found our small group. And our small group leaders were just fantastic, and they're really good friends of ours now, and they go to this church now. We poached them, and they just really helped us significantly in our walk with Jesus. Like, they really, we'd open the Bible, and they would ask us questions like, how did you feed your flesh this week? And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so just, like, reflecting on that, they taught us so much, and they were so gracious and so patient with us. And we just grew so much with them. We were in that group for 2 years, and then we started coming here once we moved to Chesapeake.
So you described your family as rescued, redeemed, and blessed abundantly.
Yes.
What do those words mean to you?
Christian and I think we're rescued through our daughter, having her. That's when the Lord really intervened in our lives. So first it was the heartbeat, I think, that really made me when you hear and you see a baby's heartbeat, there is no denying that there is a God. There is no denying it. And I just really had to there's no denying it. Yeah. I just really had to relinquish control of my life to him in that moment. I knew when I heard that heartbeat, I was having this baby. I had to have that baby. But like I said, the enemy wanted me to take the easy way out. So I think in that moment I was rescued. And then through just parenthood and having our daughter and like having to rely on the Lord for parenting. I mean, and now getting to like disciple two beautiful babies. Like the Lord has just been so kind to us to give us those babies, to entrust us with those babies, to raise and disciple and love on. And like, that's been such a redemptive process for us, you know? I mean, I was living solely for me. I was dating Christian, but I think that was just like a convenience. I loved him, but I still wanted like my own life, you know? And then when we brought in this new little life into our world, like, I was so in love with her. I was so in love with him. I was so in love with just even like far more than I ever thought I could be. Just this life that the Lord has given me. That, I mean, like even, I'm just in awe of like how blessed we really are. Like, our babies are brilliant. They are healthy. They're happy. We live in a safe area, a safe neighborhood. We have reliable cars, and like, we're not worried about where our next meal is going to come from. Like, the Lord has blessed us so much. And like, prior to that, all I was worried about was just like the way that I look and how I dress and like, where am I going to go tonight? And just like such a disgusting, selfish lifestyle. And now it's like, I mean, he's just given us a life so much more rich and meaningful and beautiful than I could have ever imagined for myself. I never really thought that I was going to get married. I certainly never thought I was going to be a mom. And the fact that I'm both now, I mean, I'm just in awe because I felt so unworthy and I felt like I could never put someone else before me. I'm the selfish only child, you know? And now that's all I ever want to do. All I want to do is serve my family and the Lord. Like, that's all I want to do. And like, he's just drastically changed the desires of my heart. Drastically.
You're somebody who gets a unique perspective because you reached like a level of success.
Yeah.
Get a job for a professional basketball team and live that whole lifestyle. Like, most people would consider that like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And you got to see what that was like, and you get to see what this is like.
Yeah.
So like, now that you can see them both, like, what is your perspective?
Well, now I'm winning. Now I'm successful, you know? Now I have just the true love of Christ and the true love of my husband and my children. And now I get to show my family the love of Christ through me and my actions and my words and how I serve. And it's just like far beyond better than what I could have ever planned for myself. Like, he has just had this gorgeous life laid out for me that I was so resistant to. And I'm so thankful that he intervened and that I did submit to him and his plans for me, because it's so much more fulfilling. I mean, I'm exhausted and I'm nauseous, but every day I'm just so grateful. I'm full of gratitude, like truly so grateful for the life that I live. It's not perfect, you know, it's messy. A lot of the times it's loud, it's overstimulating, but like, I wouldn't want anything else. Now that I've tasted and seen this, that he has for me, this is all I could ever want. And I want more of it. I want all of the babies. I want, you know, I want land now. I want a homestead. Who would have thought? Like, nobody would have thought that for me.
That's awesome. So, looking back at your story, what do you want women who are facing an unplanned pregnancy to know?
That pregnancy is planned. It's for sure planned. And that even though this baby may have been conceived out of, you know, uncontrolled circumstances or, you know, not ideally in your way, and even if it happened out of something horrific, the Lord can use it for good. And that baby is planned. The Lord is sovereign over all life, and he has a plan for you and your baby. And that plan is far better than anything that you could control and any plan you have for yourself.
What would you say to the woman who's scared or believes abortion is her only option?
Yeah. I mean, that I was there too. I for sure was there too. And it's not. And it really shouldn't be an option because it's murder. And that baby's life is really not in your hands. It's in the Lord's hands. And no matter what you think the worst possible outcome is, it will always be better than that. The Lord will use it for good. He will make a way. He will give you the strength. He will give you what you need. You will find the resources. He will help you with that. And that baby, He has plans for that baby. He has plans for you. That baby is meant to be here, and you are meant to be that baby's mama.
What are you most thankful for having been through this experience?
I'm just thankful that He called me to a life I never would have imagined for myself. And that He spoke to me through those prayers that week. And that He softened my heart to be obedient to Him and to not choose my own way. Because had I chosen my own way, I wouldn't be married. I'd probably still be in that same apartment, working for that same job, living a very lonely and unfulfilling life. I'm so grateful that despite my selfishness and despite me not really knowing Him, He pursued me and He called me and He qualified me for the task. Because like I said, I mean, now it's all I want to do. All I care about is my family and my babies and discipling my babies and loving on them and loving on other babies, you know, and loving on other babies' mamas. Like, I know what it's like. I know the trenches of postpartum, and I know how much help we need, and I know how necessary community is. And so I'm super passionate about just getting other mamas involved, especially in the ministry here. You know, like for me, it's been life-changing. I would not have friends, really, in this area if it wasn't for the ministry here. So I'm just grateful that He flipped my life entirely upside down. Like, I'm a 180, totally a different person than I was, and I could not be more grateful for that because I was just a vile person with vile desires. And like, through that pregnancy and through our daughter and our marriage and just finding community, like a Christ-filled community, like, we are entirely different people. Entirely. And I'm super grateful for that.
If your younger self, the girl holding the positive pregnancy test, were sitting in front of you now, what would you tell her?
That it's all planned. And that it's even better than you can imagine. It's all planned out, and it's gonna go so much better. Your family's gonna love that baby, and they're gonna be so excited for that baby. They're gonna love your husband. You're gonna love your life. And it's so worth it. It's all so worth it. Hi, my name is Keegan, and I am captivated and changed by Jesus.